Welcome to the video. This is the 2.2 example. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do a histogram in Excel. I'm going to show you two ways of doing it. And then in the class, I'll show you another way that we can actually create a histogram using Excel. So this is the file that I provided to you. I provided to you actually the raw data. And so I showed you with a video how to complete this table. And this is the relative frequency distribution table. Is just simply all of this. If I wanted the relative frequency distribution, then I can go ahead and provide all of this. But whenever you provide this in a lab or in a project, you do not provide the entire thing that you do here. You simply provide that if they want the relative frequency table. You can provide these two and this one if they want the relative frequency, or the class boundaries and the cumulative frequency. So it just really depends. So, but whatever you do, don't give the entire thing. Okay, so the next thing is you're going to have to install an add-in in Excel. They are already installed in the computers at the ASC and also in the classroom that we use. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to File and then Options, and then here we're going to go ahead and click Add-ins. Just double click it, and so what's going to happen is that this Analysis Toolpak, it's not going to be active. It will be here in this section. So all you do if you want to activate it, just click it, right? Just highlight. Obviously, it's going to be this one. The Analysis Toolpak is the one that you want. It's active in mine, so it's up here. And yours will be inactive. It'll be down here. So Analysis Toolpak, highlight it. After you do that, make sure it says down here Excel Add-ins. Click Go. You're going to get this little pop-up. And then you can see here that I have my Analysis Toolpak. If it wasn't installed, it would be unclicked. So you just gotta make sure you click it, and then you click OK. And then what's going to happen is that sometimes you're going to have to close out Excel and then reopen it. But it's going to be in this data tab, and it'll be over here. And this is your data analysis. Okay. So how do I do a histogram? So I'm going to show you the first way without using the Toolpak, and I'm going to show you how to use the Toolpak. So what I want here is I want to go ahead and I want to graph these values, but I also want to graph these values here. And so one way to do it is simply to just highlight these, insert. You want to go ahead and do a bar graph. So you can see right now that this is obviously not a histogram, right? And so I'm missing a bunch of different things. And so the first thing that I know is that my frequency is on my vertical, but then over here on my horizontal I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I don't need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What I want is my class boundaries, or actually I want my upper class boundaries. And so there's a way for me to change this information. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and change the title. I'm just going to go ahead and put 2.2 for the sake of it. If I click on this, notice if I click on one of the values, it gets highlighted. At that point in time, this menu up here becomes available. And so I have different options. I have formatting, I have design. If I click on the design one, I can select new data to put there. So if I click on this, notice how I have an option of saying horizontal. I can switch the row and the column. I don't want to do switch the row and the column. What I want to do is I want to change the horizontal from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to these values right here. So if I click on edit, it's going to give me this little box, and I can simply just highlight them. Once I do that, I click OK. You see how now it changed from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the values that I want. Click OK again, and now I'm good there. And so the next thing that I have to do is I have to put some labels. Now, depending on which version you have of Excel, some of these tabs are a little different. So you're going to have to just kind of learn if you have a different version. So again, if I go to design, if I click on my chart, you can see how this is highlighted. I want to go to add chart element. And here we can see that I can do horizontal or vertical title. So if I were to do the vertical title, I can just do frequency. And now it's frequency. And then I go back to it and I want to do the horizontal. And then these are my class. Oops. boundaries. And then I got to make sure it has a title. I put 2.2 just for the sake of it. And so I'm almost done, but I have a bar graph. I don't want a bar graph, I want a histogram. So there's a way for me to eliminate these gaps. And if you do it this way, even if you use the Toolpak, you're still going to have to do this section of it. So if I highlight it, you notice that all my bars are highlighted. I can go ahead and right click, and I want to format the data series. And I get this little thing over here that says gap width. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the gap width to 0. Close that out, and that's my histogram. So that's one way of doing it, and this is doing it without the Analysis Toolpak. As you go through the course, it is up to you which one you prefer. In both of them, you're still going to have to put some labels and close the gaps and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and do using the Analysis Toolpak. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my Data tab, and then I'm going to click Data Analysis. And so when I get this menu here, you notice that, look, I have different options. I want to click on histogram. So I click on OK once I highlight histogram. And then the input range, and whatever you do, the input range is always going to be your raw data. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight my 50 points. You notice I got from A2 to A51. That's exactly what I want. And this next step is very important. My bin range is going to be my upper class boundaries. Please, you notice how I clicked on this line before I highlighted this. What happens a lot of times is the cursor actually stays up here. I change the data, and now it's all messed up and nothing's happening. So the next thing that I'm going to do is you have to click Chart Output, otherwise it's not going to work. And then just for this, whenever you do this, you always want it in a new worksheet, and you're going to see why in a second. So again, raw data, upper class boundaries, chart output, new worksheet. I could have highlighted just the entire column and clicked on labels. Well, you'll learn how to do that later on. Click OK, and what's going to happen is that I get this here in another sheet. And so you notice it's exactly the same thing that I had when I created the previous one. Now I don't need this, so I'm going to get rid of that. Here I'm just going to go ahead and name it 2.2. My bin range is actually my class boundaries, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that there. The frequency is already there. So if you notice that it has a column here that says more and is empty. And so the reason we don't want to put it in where we have our raw data is because we're about to delete something. And we're going to delete this entire row. And you notice how I'm doing it. I'm not just deleting this. I'm clicking on the entire row. So I click on the 7. I right click. I delete the entire row. Notice that my more column is gone. And then at this point in time, I do exactly the same thing I did before. I want to minimize that gap width to 0. So I click on the bars. I right click. And then I close my gap width to 0, and then that's my histogram. And so that's the video how to create a histogram using the Toolpak and not using the Toolpak. Thank you.